So the Google Calendar should hopefully make you feel more flexible and give you some freedom rather than constrict your life. Hopefully it should open it up and make your PhD and your life easier. Hello, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am Adri Corti. The goal of my channel is to make academia entertaining and accessible for you. So if that sounds good, please make sure to like and comment and subscribe. So today I'm going to be doing one of my more practical videos where I show you how to use Google Calendar to make your PhD and just your overall life a lot easier and a lot more efficient. I'm going to show you my Google Calendar. Even though I know it literally looks insane, there's like a million different colors, every day is filled with something, and so it might look like complete madness, but I swear to you there is a method to this madness, and that it has made my life a lot more organized. I'm able to do a lot more tasks at once and juggle a lot of different responsibilities while I'm doing my PhD. So stay tuned if you want to see how you can make your calendar look like this too. So first I'm going to go into the types of entries that I use. Then I'm going to go into different scenarios and then how I would use those entries actually within Google Calendar to basically get different tasks and different things done. So in the end, I'll also go into how I use Google Calendar more for my personal life. That includes things like just taking care of the house, taking care of my animals, and also making sure to book time to actually do really fun things like go on vacation, go to dinners, go to the movies, and things like that. The first thing I want to get into is the different types of entries. I'm going to talk about these from kind of the most set in stone entry on Google Calendar to the least set in stone entry. So the first most set in stone sort of entry are events. So these are set in stone because you would like book a meeting with somebody and say it's this date and this time, and then you would make that into an event. And once that event passes, you don't get to check it off or anything. The event passes just because the actual time has passed. So the second thing that's a little less set in stone is tasks. These can be checked off when they're done, but what makes them a little bit more time sensitive, a little bit more set in stone, is that if you don't complete a task on the day that it's supposed to be done, the next day it will say one pending task. Sort of creates this like feeling of you were supposed to do this, it was pending, you were supposed to do this on this date. The last entry I use, which is sort of the least set in stone and things you should use for things that are like not very time sensitive, are reminders. And so these can also be checked off when they're done. And if you don't do them on the day you scheduled, they will simply just move on to the next day. They won't say pending reminder or anything like that and indicate the day you were supposed to do them. They just keep moving on every single day you don't do them. And so saying the kind of entries you use are sort of abstract unless I give you some scenarios that I actually use within grad school with each of these kinds of entries. So the first thing I'm going to go into is long-term experiments. So this is what I do for my mouse studies. I have to put them on a high-fat diet for about 12 weeks, and then at the end of that 12 weeks, I do different endpoint experiments on the mice. So the first thing I want to do is make sure, pretend I go 12 weeks in the future, that then I tell myself that I would set an event that says today is the 12th week on the high-fat diet for the mice. So I'd set this event, I'd go to more options, hit all day, and then make it red. So I use color coding a little bit, where red is meaning that this is a really important event, and that there's really not a lot of leeway in rescheduling it or anything. And then pink I usually use for like fun things. And so it's like kind of light color coding. Anyway, I'll say today is the 12th week on the high-fat diet for mice in study, let's say number 1. So I'll save this. If I don't want this to sneak up on me, then I'll make sure that I add different notifications. And so I can say 1 day, remind me 1 week before, remind me 2 weeks before. And this is really important too, because before the study happens, I need to make sure I have people scheduled to help me. All of these different things need to be planned before, and I'm aware of that. So I'll make sure that this event, I'll have notifications several weeks in advance, so I start thinking about it before, it just shows up on the calendar. But I need to remember to also feed and weigh the mice weekly. And so I would set a reminder, like for Monday, to feed and weigh mice. My days are sort of flexible, so I would just say all day as the time, so I can do this task whenever. I actually need to feed and weigh the mice twice a week, so I'll tell it, please custom repeat every week on Wednesday and Friday. And so now every Wednesday and Friday, I'll get this reminder so that I'm making sure I'm staying on top of this study. So let's say on October 12th, this is the 12th week on the high-fat diet for the study number 1, mice. And so I know on this day, I'm probably going to be doing an endpoint experiment. And then after I get my samples from the mice, I need to drop them off probably at these different cores within the university for people to process them differently. So this is when I would say that I need to make sure to do this the next day to make sure it gets done and that I don't procrastinate on this task. I could say, give mouse samples to core. With the task, you can actually see the text over here. And so that's different because if there's like more than one reminder, we'll just say something like this. Okay, so if there's more than one reminder, you see they actually just start to stack into numbers, and so then you have to click to actually see what they are. But with task, no matter how many there are, you'll be able to see the text. And so basically what I'm just showing you for like a long-term experiment is that you want to think of what you need to do before the experiment, during the experiment, and after the experiment. And then you can sort of set your Google Calendar up with all of those sorts of different things, either with an event, a task, or a reminder to make sure that you actually get it done. The next thing I want to go over is different meetings. So for like a meeting, let's say a meeting with Jane Doe, it's on October 3rd, it's gonna be from, let's say, 3:30 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. And so here, if it's a Zoom meeting, I would like to put in the description box the Zoom ID and everything, so I don't have to keep looking through my email for Zoom IDs. It will just always be within this meeting. I can also put other information within the description box, like who will be there, what we'll be talking about. If there's anything I need to do to prep, then I can put a task, not a reminder, because it actually needs to be done before the next day when the meeting is going to happen. It is a time-sensitive thing I need to do. So I can say, get document ready for meeting tomorrow. And I would do this as soon as I find out about the meeting. I go ahead and populate my Google Calendar. Another thing is like committee meetings for your thesis. And so for me, I'm supposed to meet with them about every 6 months. And so my committee meeting is November 2nd from 4 to 5 p.m. But then I can say, well, I know it needs to repeat every 6 months. So I can say custom, make sure to repeat every 6 and months, and then go ahead and put it in. So you want to make sure to set notifications maybe 1 day before, 1 week before, 1 month before, to get you knowing that, okay, this is coming up. Prep for committee meeting is probably going to take more than just 1 day. So then I would go a week before. So if it's November 2nd, I would go to October 26th and go ahead and put prep for a committee meeting. And this is something I might put as a reminder because it is, I'm giving myself basically a week to do this. I'll probably procrastinate for a few days and then I'll end up doing it like over the weekend or something. But I design my calendar with my personality in mind that I need to give myself some buffer time to ignore the reminder for a little bit because I'll be busy with other things and then to actually do it. So I'll give myself a week knowing that I'll probably end up doing the reminder a few days after I actually set it. If you're that kind of way, just make sure you're setting your Google Calendar with your personality in mind. If you're the kind of person that you just like to do things the night before, then you might set prep for a committee meeting as a task because it's time sensitive. And if you like to do it the night before, you could say, 8 p.m. the night before, prep for committee meeting. If that's your personality, you like to do it the night before, just set your Google Calendar that way so that you actually get it done. So I have reoccurring meetings every week. I have my journal club. On Monday, I'll set that as an event and I'll just tell it, make sure you repeat weekly on Monday from 2 to 3 p.m. or whenever it is, so I don't forget. And so then those days where I have to present within Journal Club, I'll simply just change the event name for that day and include you present in all caps. And hit save, and then just make sure that you hit only save to this event and not to all the events, because then every time it will come up, it will say that you're presenting, and that is not true. Every time I start my week, I look at the whole week of my Google Calendar, and I also maybe check out the next week. So I'm always sort of cognitive of what's coming up. And if you're not that kind of way, like you kind of set something and forget, then you probably want to add more notifications. Remind me a week before about this, remind me 2 weeks. You have to set it based on your personality intentionality of like what is going to work for you. After you go to a meeting, like sometimes if I meet with my PI or I meet with the committee I'm on, I'm given multiple tasks to do, because that can feel really overwhelming when someone told you to do 20 different things. And so what you want to do is populate your calendar with what you need to do and either make it a task if it's time sensitive or a reminder if it's not time sensitive. And so let's say I just went to a meeting and I was given like 20 different tasks to do. So basically after that meeting, I would probably end up feeling a little overwhelmed and like, how am I going to get this all done? But if I'm given about 2 or 3 weeks to do all these things, then I'll populate my calendar accordingly. So in this case, it would be kind of time sensitive. And so I want to probably make tasks instead of reminders. So everything's empty because I'm using like an example calendar, but like on a normal day, I might have like 20 things to do on this Tuesday, but my Wednesday is looking pretty open. I'm not going to add a task on that Tuesday just to add to the stress. I'm going to say, okay, well, I'm probably not going to do that task on Tuesday. It's very busy. Let me set the task for Wednesday and say, do task 1 from meeting. And I'll give myself all day, like something like this. And then I'll say, you know what, after that, I might be kind of tired. I have another, busy week. Then the next week I'll say, do task 2 from meeting and all day, something like this. And so what you want to do is try to alleviate feeling overwhelmed by just making a really good plan. If you have like 3 weeks to do it, space different tasks out that you can check off, and then by the time the meeting comes, you're completely done with things. And what you want to do is be able to just empty your brain too. I don't want to be having to catalog all the different things I have to do and then feeling overwhelmed because I didn't write them down or I wrote them on a sticky note and threw it away. I want it all in one place. So we just went over sort of how you can handle meetings and then tasks that you get from meetings. Another thing is if you're mentoring a student in your lab. What's really cool about Google Calendar is you can make calendars, new calendars to share with people really easily. So like you can see here, this calendar is my name. And then there's other calendars like birthdays and holidays and things like that. So you can really easily create a new calendar, give it a name, what time so it's in, a description, and then add people to it. If you're confused about how to do that, go check out another video. I'm sure there's a bunch on YouTube about how to make a new calendar and share it with someone. And it can be called, rotation within so-and-so's lab. So then you can start to have these events where you can share it with people and be like, be in lab. Then I could say, add this event to this other calendar as well. For that certain date, I could add, links here. I could add PDFs, attachments, all of these different things. So maybe if there's a protocol you want them to look over before they come. And so you're always on the same page about kind of what's expected of you. Also, they'll be able to edit the events too. So if you're with an undergrad who might have sort of a crazy schedule that's sort of hard to keep up with, and they could say, I have a test today, so I'm actually going to be in from 11 to 3 p.m. And if they can still get all their work done and you guys have agreed that you can change the schedule based on their needs, then you can easily start to do that and just be aware of each other's whereabouts and when you're supposed to be in lab and also what you're going to be doing that day. And so you don't have to be emailing back and forth, oh, where are you? Are you coming in today? What time are you coming in? Just simply have a shared Google Calendar. This can also be really helpful if they are in your lab to get school credit and they need to be there for a certain amount of hours. This is a really nice way to actually keep track of their hours and say, this week you were here this long, this week you were here this long. So it actually has a lot of different purposes. This kind of thing will be more relevant if it's sort of a newer undergrad maybe, and they're not as independent yet. Like some of those things, it would be always nice to have a shared schedule, but like adding the PDF for protocols and stuff, as they become more independent, you can probably let that part go because they can figure out what they're doing on their own. But it's really helpful if someone's really new to lab work, so they can always know what to expect when they come in. Another thing you can use Google Calendar for in grad school is long-term writing tasks. So there's quite a few of these sorts of tasks that come along with getting your PhD, like writing grants and writing manuscripts and writing your big old thesis that's going to be probably hundreds of pages long. And so these are tasks that can seem giant when you're first introduced to them. And sometimes it's just hard to get yourself to write or to do anything for this giant task because it feels so intimidating. And so what I've learned to do for grants and for trying to write a manuscript, so I'll set a reminder that says work on manuscript for 1 hour. and I'll set it to all day. You write best at 12 p.m. or you write best at 8 a.m., then you could set that as your time. I tend to do all day because I sort of have different things to do every day, so I'm not sure when I'm gonna have time to do it. So I'll say work on manuscript for 1 hour, and I'll say, let's repeat this a custom on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and I'll give Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off, because if it's not a super time sensitive thing, like you have months to do it probably, then you can work on it a little bit here and there. And so that will populate here. So you can see every day I'll have this reminder, work on manuscript for 1 hour. So I decided to do reminders here instead of task, because say on this Monday I'm really, really busy and I just don't get to it, then this reminder the next day on Tuesday will just be over here now. And so then I'll just work on the manuscript for 2 hours instead of 1 to sort of check off both of those reminders. You don't want to let this happen too much, because if you do, then on Thursday you might have to work on the manuscript for 4 hours because you didn't work on it all week. And that is just going to feel like a giant task that can't be done. So you want to try to stay on top of it, but you do want to make it flexible so that you don't feel really stressed out if you miss one day. Also too, if an hour is too long for you, you can set work on this for 30 minutes a day. When it's time for me to do this, I'll set a timer on my watch for 1 hour and work on nothing else but the manuscript for 1 hour. So you have to make sure too that you're doing the reminder as you set. Don't work on it for 10 minutes and then check the reminder off. This will take some personal responsibility and motivation to get these things done. But over time, you'll see how much you can actually get done a little bit at a time. If you even need more structure, then you can set deadlines for yourself. So let's say on November 18th, be done with figures for manuscript. And so I could set this as just an event that probably goes on all day. And again, it's okay to adjust things. So if this week was really hard for me, then I'll say, actually, I'm gonna try to be done with figures of manuscript on the 25th instead of the 18th. I need another week. It's okay as long as you have a good amount of time to do things, to change things around based on your schedule, based on your mental health that week, based on many different things. It's okay to change things around. The Google Calendar should be flexible. That's why it's also an art to plan things to not get stressed out. Like if I say on the 26th, my PI is gonna expect me to have those figures done, then I would probably end up setting that event for a few weeks earlier, because I know I'm gonna procrastinate and I know I'm probably gonna have to switch the date and push it later. So give yourself room to do that if you know you are that kind of person. Another thing I like to do is use Google Calendar to keep up with important emails. So emails every day sort of stress me out. I go to work thinking, I have these lists of things to do, and then I'll check my email and suddenly the list gets longer. There's these unexpected things. Email just stresses me out. So if you look over your email and see an important one that you don't want to answer right away, you have other things on your mind, it's not really your main concern, and it's not super time sensitive, then I'll put a reminder of answer, Jane's email a few days later or a day later, so that I just give myself more time to think about it. I don't have to do it right now. I'll just make sure I do it tomorrow. And I also, because I use Outlook for my email, I just pin the email to the top so I can see it. So when I go to the next day and I have that reminder to answer it, it will be at the very top. Also, another thing, if you send an important kind of time sensitive email, okay, answer Jane's email on the 23rd. So then when I check that off, I'm okay, done. But if her response to me is time sensitive, then I'll end up setting a few days later, maybe the next Monday, email Jane again if she didn't respond. And set as a reminder if it's not super time sensitive, or maybe a task if it is a lot more time sensitive. So you also want to be thinking too later on, if this happens, then this happens. If this doesn't happen, then this happens. I use a lot of different reminders like that. And I always give myself a few days so I don't seem clingy, but then I'm always on top of people and they know if you don't answer me, I'm gonna reach back out again. Another really practical thing if you're in a laboratory working on your PhD is to put an event in your Google Calendar to tell you the expiration for different reagents in your lab. And so say, you open up a new thing or you make a new reagent and it says stable for 6 months at 4 degrees Celsius. I'll just go ahead from that day, go, 6 months in the future and say, solution XYZ is expired, and tell myself where it is. I could do that in the title or I could do it in the description. It doesn't matter. It's in fridge by your bench. and I would set that as an event and then make it red. So it's not something that I really need to check off, but that it will just be on my calendar. So I need to go check on that reagent. Is it still there? If it is, I probably should throw it away. But this way you're constantly cleaning out things you don't need within your lab, and you're not accidentally using things that are expired. But also you probably want to be writing the expiration date on the actual reagent itself, but it doesn't hurt to also put it in your calendar. Another thing that I use Google Calendar for is just general decision making. I have found that it's really exhausting for me to just make decisions. That's why I like planning so much, because it takes the decision making out of every day, because I've already before decided what I'm going to be doing that day. Basically on days where I'm presented with a new issue that is not super time sensitive, that I have a little bit of time to deal with, and I'm just not ready at all to use an ounce of my decision making power on that issue today, then I'll actually end up setting a reminder to make a decision about something. So let's say Monday I get like an invitation to do something. It's going to be a new responsibility or something, and on Monday I feel overwhelmed. I'm like, I have such a busy week, I just cannot even think about this. I have some time to respond. Then Friday I'll set myself a reminder, make a decision about this, about, you know, XYZ, whatever it might be. So even as things like might seem a little dramatic as telling yourself to make a decision, but it really helps me feel better every day that my brain is thinking about so many things. If I can move any other task through their day, I will, even if it's as simple as make a decision about if you're gonna go to this event or something. Another thing I do is if there's expectations of any kind that are given to me. So what I mean by this is if someone emails me or something or tells me, you know, I'm gonna have this thing to you by this date. So let's say, you know, they told me they will have this document to me by January 25th. So I will go ahead and put, you know, Jane should have document to you today, as just like an event for all day. So just that it's like sort of on my radar that she told me this is the day she was gonna give it to me. I'll also go ahead and set a task for the next day. If Jane didn't give you document, email her. And so let's say Jane does give me the document on the 25th, I'll simply just delete that task from the 26th. It doesn't matter. When you are setting yourself up for any sort of event or experiment or task, make sure that you fully set everything up. The before, the during, and the after. Just go ahead, set yourself up reminders and tasks so that everything is laid out. And then also just extracurriculars for your PhD. I'll probably end up doing a video on this, but unfortunately, just getting your PhD is often not enough. You have to have extracurriculars, be in clubs, be on committees, all of these different things. And so you end up balancing that sort of stuff too. I'm the vice president for my graduate student association. And so every Monday, I'll just say work on VP duties as a reminder. You would need to tell Google to repeat it weekly on Monday, so you're seeing it every week. And then, you know, if my VP duties are really light that week, I don't really have anything to do, again, I can just simply delete that task. So that's how you can keep up with things that are reoccurring. And now just sort of the more fun stuff for Google Calendar is how I also like to organize my personal life. When, you know, I'm invited to a dinner, I'll say dinner at, you know, Jane's house, and I usually make these events pink. One reason I put it in is because it's pink and it's fun and you can look forward to it. So if you have a hard week, then you can see at least, you know, Thursday night, I'll be going to Jane's house. And then also when you add all these different events, then you have a fun time capsule. So I can look back months later and say, remember all those things I did with my friends. Also, another thing is that if it's scheduled, I'm most likely going to do it because I am obsessed with Google Calendar. So if it's in my calendar, I'm most definitely gonna do it. Like on this Friday, January 3rd, I know I need a mental health day. Like it's been months of me working maybe, I haven't had a vacation. I'll make this event pink and I'll say mental health day, no work. So if it's in your calendar, you're probably actually going to do it. So even scheduling your time off, your vacations, your events that are fun so that you end up having a better work-life balance because you put your time off in the calendar, so it's probably actually going to happen. So the last thing after the personal stuff that you want to add, like the fun events to look forward to and to make sure that you're setting time for your work-life balance, is just general life stuff. And so I'll have weekly reminders to go grocery shopping. I'll have reminders to take care of my cat and my dog, like this is their vet appointment, and make that a reoccurring reminder every 6 months, every year, or to give them medications if it's a monthly thing, first of the month, you know, make sure to give dog medication. I have reminders to water my houseplants. I have reminders to exercise. I have reminders to FaceTime my friends and to FaceTime my family because, again, those things are important to schedule because then they actually happen. I have reminders to pay credit card, to pay rent. I have reminders to just stuff around the house, like to change the AC filter out every so often, to clean the bathrooms in the house. I have reminders to film YouTube videos or to prep for a YouTube video, edit video, publish video, promote video. So I have all of these different reminders. I have reminders to pick up prescriptions, to book a doctor's appointment, to book dentist appointment. And again, for family and friends, birthdays and anniversaries, if you can just go ahead and put that in your calendar, then when those things come up, you can simply send them something nice or just a text. And it's such a simple way to keep up with people, and it's just reoccurring in your calendar. It's very easy. So it might seem crazy how many things I use Google Calendar for. My fiance doesn't even like to look at my Google Calendar because it's so overwhelming to him when he sees it. But to me, it's actually a method to provide my life actually more freedom because I budgeted all my time. Some days are free, some days I don't have anything. I swear, I know it looks crazy, but some days are actually free. But I budget my time so I don't have to feel so stressed about things because every day I know exactly what needs to be done that day, what's time sensitive, what is not, what events I have. I don't have to be remembering anything in my mind because my Google Calendar has everything. If you look at my Google Calendar and you're like, this girl is crazy, that looks insane, I can't even begin, you can just take it one technique I've given you at a time. So the next meeting you go to, maybe after that meeting you'll have a task that says do so-and-so for meeting, and you'll just start with that. You don't need to get your whole life together right away. You can just incorporate one technique at a time, see what works, see what doesn't, and adjust accordingly. And I will say some reminders, I just delete them. You know, like when I showed you, I have a reminder that says work on manuscript for 1 hour. Sometimes, some weeks are not great for that, and I'll have one day where all the reminders have compiled because I kept skipping them, and it's now I'm gonna have to work on manuscript for 5 hours, and I'll just delete all of them because it's just too much that week, and I don't feel bad about it. I'm like, this week just wasn't for me. So don't get stressed if things aren't going well at first. If some weeks are really hard, you have to delete stuff. So the Google Calendar should hopefully make you feel more flexible and give you some freedom rather than constrict your life. Hopefully it should open it up and make your PhD and your life easier. So let me know if that was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. Stay tuned for more practical videos, for more videos about different academic topics. I have a lot of stuff coming up and you don't want to miss it. So make sure to subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.